Now continue with our lesson, and our second part, as you know, is a focus on the provisions of RA 6713, or the Code of Conduct and Ethical Standards for Public Officials and Employees. Now, I have here the salient sections, or the most important ones, and section 4, actually there it establishes the norms of conduct of public officials, and you can read it through in the explanation and as found in the full text. However, I just want to focus on this very critical norm, and I think most of the public officials, those who were involved in a controversy, most especially, are involved in or not compliant with this norm. This is just my personal opinion, though. One is simple living, and if you look at the previous in the history of the Philippines, one of the things subject of investigation is always the accounts, the properties, and having so much properties and account monies is incongruous with this norm, having a simple life. So those in public and those who want in public service and those who want to be in the public service, you have to take note of this very important norm. And now we go to section 5, the duties of public officials. You have to be keen on your duties, and actually this is part of professionalism, and being a professional, you have to address concerns promptly, and the law mandates that within 15 working days from receipt you have to act, or the public official must act on letters and requests, and there should be an issuance, or no, let me correct that, submission of annual performance report. So that would be part of the tracking of the duties and the fulfillment or the milestones of the duties, and it should be submitted within 45 days from the end of the year. And aside from these duties, you have to or the public official is expected to process documents and papers expeditiously, and it should be within a reasonable time. And you have to look into the provisions of the Anti-Red Tape Act. And also, you have to make all documents accessible to the public, although there are limitations or exceptions to this. And I will discuss also as to the data privacy and as to the access of the public on those data. Now, what are the prohibited acts? Aside from the duties, since RA 6713 is a penal law, you have to consider the prohibited acts, and it's found in section 5 of the law. So you have to take note. I want to emphasize on solicitation or acceptance of gifts. And this provision does not make a qualification if there's a Christmas season or what. So you have to be keen on this. And these are very stringent expectations and responsibilities actually involved in the office. And I want to emphasize also the outside employment or other activities related to the office. However, there are instances in which, especially like a lawyer employed in the government, they have limited practice. However, for this limited practice to be allowed, there should be a written consent of the head of the department, of which the person belongs to. Now, what about Section 8? This is a very controversial, or like from time to time you get to hear the acronym SALN. So the meaning of that would be statements of assets, liabilities, net worth, and financial disclosure, actually. So it covers or even the spouses and unmarried children, but you have to remember that these children must be under 18 years of age and living in the household of the public official. And the exception to this requirement is that on public officials doing or performing tasks in honorary capacity, or those laborers and casual or temporary workers, they're not covered, because expectedly it means that they have no properties at all, they have no investments. So although this could be an avenue for convention of the law. Now, what are the contents of the statements? These are properties, that includes personal and real properties. I will allot another lesson on the classification of properties and the legal implications. And aside from the assets, you have to take note of the liabilities. And this one is very important, all business interests and financial connections. This means that if one is a shareholder of a company, then, or he is holding as a member of the board, the public official must disclose such. And when should this be filed? It should be filed before assumption of office, and during the assumption of office, and even after separation of office. And the common period is 30 days, and except for the annual compliance on or before April 30 of the year. Now, aside from the SALN and the disclosure of financial or business interests, you have to, if you are hired by the government, you have to execute a written authority in favor of the ombudsman. This is in consonance with the function of the ombudsman, who serves as the police on for the people, so that the it can be avoided, or persons who committed graft and corrupt practices would be prosecuted under the law. Now, where should you file, or and who should file the SALN? You have to remember that this is an exclusive separate enumeration of the law. The constitutional and elective officials, national, like the president, the vice president, and members of Congress, and the justices and judges of the judiciary. So, what about the national executive officials, like the department heads? They will be submitting that with the office of the president. Since you can read it through actually in the slides, and you have to take note of this enumeration. And other public officials and employees, you just have to go to the Civil Service Commission. Now, what about divestment? Divestment actually is a way of giving up your shareholdings and interests, and it should be done within 60 days from assumption of office. And even if the public official or employee is just a partner in a partnership, he has to divest also. However, it does not again apply to those serving in honorary capacity, laborers, and casual and temporary workers. Now, based on this based on these provisions, I have here three learnings. You have to remember, if you plan to be in the government service, that the public office is a public trust. So if you don't want more stress or like more expectations, then avoid the government service. Although it's really fulfilling, or if it's really your calling, then why not? And public officials must be compliant with the norms, the policies, the principles of public service. And again, too much is expected of you if you are in the public service and everyone is looking at you. Especially if you're a lawyer, that's a double whammy then. And the expectations again are so high. So especially those law students, bar takers soon, and those who just passed the bar examination, the 2019 bar examinations, and is going to take their oath taking in the next few weeks. Um, you have to rethink as to whether you're going to be in the public service. And for those who are already in the public service, my advice would be, you just have to be compliant with the norms, so that there will be no problems for personal problems, and even your family may be dragged. And I hope you learned something from this lesson, and I look forward again to another lesson next week. And I'm excited for the next bar guide. See you, and thank you so much.